Yeah, hi folks. Yes, the rainbow camel is now almost entirely in the tent. Now, it first got its nose in the tent back in 1986 when sex between men was decriminalised. And then it got about a third of its body in the tent back in 2004 when civil unions were recognised. And then it got about a half of its body in the tent in 2013 when gay marriage was legalised. And I'll start it off there today with Morris Williamson.
Sir, I want to first of all congratulate Louisa Wall for this bill, and I want to say, sir, that the good news about the years in this parliament is you learn to deflect all of the dreadful sort of fire and brimstone accusations that are going to happen, sir. I've had a reverend in my local electorate call the gay onslaught will start the day after this bill is passed. Sir, we're really struggling to know what the gay onslaught will look like.
Well, Morris, this is what it looks like.
In July 2020, billions of people will watch the Olympic flame burn once again as the Tokyo Olympics begin. But with new rules making it easier for transgender women to compete in women's events for the first time, 2020 could turn out to be a highly controversial Olympic Games. There's a heated debate in women's sports over the inclusion of transgender women, people who are biologically male and identify as women.
This is about, are trans women actually women? And it's clear that legally and socially we are, so why exclude us from sport?
This isn't about saying to someone, you can't live your life as a transgender woman, but you can't just ignore the fact that biology is something that, as humans, we have.
Exactly. Are you listening, Morris?
This morning, victory.
Thomas wins the NCAA championship.
And controversy. Lia Thomas, a swimmer on the University of Pennsylvania's women's swim team, has become the first openly transgender athlete to win a Division I NCAA championship.
I try to focus on my swimming, what I need to do to get ready for my races, and just try to block out everything else.
Outside of the arena, dueling protests.
This isn't about hate. This is about identities do not play sports. Bodies play sports. And Lia Thomas will always have a male body.
Yes, and it's ironic, isn't it? The very left-wing people who profess to be for women are destroying women. And the madness continues. Are you still there, Morris?
You stood up here and said trans women are women.
Yes.
Tell me what you mean. What is a woman?
Womanhood is something that, just as Ethan explained, I cannot define because I am not myself.
You used the word. So what did you mean when you said trans women are women if you don't know what it means?
Right. So here's the thing. So I do not define what a woman is because I do not identify as a woman. Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people who...
That describes what?
People who identify as a woman.
Identify as what?
As a woman.
What is that?
Was to each their own.
What you want to do is appropriate women. You want to appropriate womanhood.
Okay.
And turn it into basically a costume that can be worn.
What does being a woman mean to you?
Be careful. Hey, Jojo, be careful. They're not a legit.
What is your news organization?
Yeah.
You don't think we're legit?
We were just told.
Just checking. I don't want to get like...
There's an easy definition for what a woman is.
Girls have a vagina.
Girls have a vagina. So simple, isn't it? But no.
As long as she's identifying as a woman.
A woman is anyone who identifies themselves as a woman.
A woman is someone that identifies as a woman.
It's who you identify as.
If you identify as a woman and you feel that like in your soul and in your mind you're a woman, that makes you a woman.
Yeah, and the madness is so extreme that even the new Supreme Court Justice can't define what a woman is.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No.
Yeah.
I can't.
And the rot continues. Are you still listening, Morris?
Officials in New Jersey are learning that lesson this week. 2 female inmates at a supposedly all-women's prison in New Jersey have just become pregnant. We wonder how that happened.
Well, it turns out those women had sexual encounters with another inmate who was a biological man passing as a woman. Now, some people predicted that this would happen, and they were laughed at, mocked, and attacked as bigots. Kara Dansky is at the very top of that list. She said this years ago on our show. She's the president of the U.S. chapter of the Women's Declaration International, author of the book The Abolition of Sex, How the Transgender Agenda Harms Women and Girls, and we are happy to have Kara Dansky back. Kara, thanks so much for coming on. I'll never forget the first time, and it had to have been at least 4 years ago, when you said, if we keep going down this path, we're going to have biological men in women's prisons. And you were right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. You know, though the story that's happening in New Jersey is obviously horrible for so many reasons. We need to not have men being housed in women's prisons. But a couple takeaways from this that I just want to point out are, first of all, the state is not getting away with this by telling its residents that they are housing men in women's prisons. What they are doing, of course, is telling the residents that they are housing so-called transgender women or trans women in women's prisons, suggesting that there is some sort of subcategory of women that is called transgender women or trans women, and it's not true. The fact of this story shoots a hole right through the trope that trans women are women. Our society has been taught that we are supposed to say and think that trans women are women, but obviously that is not true, because the individuals that are the focus of the story impregnated women, and every thinking adult, no matter what the President of the United States has to say on the matter, knows that there is no category of women who can impregnate women.
There's no category of women that can impregnate women. Now that is one of the best arguments I've ever heard. And of course, this agenda is now in schools.
A family can be made up in many different ways.
It's called SOGI, for Sexual Orientation and Gender Identification, a curriculum that teaches public school students across Canada to celebrate the homosexual lifestyle and that gender is fluid. In other words, your gender is not dependent on what parts you were born with, but rather what you feel like in the moment.
There's people that are boys, there's people that are girls. There are people whose gender might be a little bit of both or might even be neither.
Lessons include books about transgender children, such as 10,000 Dresses, and songs like The Rainbow Song.
Gender won't decide the choices we make. Some boys like dressing up, some girls like catching snakes.
The SOGI curriculum started in British Columbia in 2016 and is quickly spreading throughout Canada.
I just thought, who decided that this was okay to teach our children?
Author and inspirational speaker Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson is a leading voice against the SOGI curriculum.
And we are seeing the results of that now, because some kids are reacting very emotionally and saying, and they're in fear. Will I suddenly struggle with feeling like a different gender inside of my body?
Carrie Simpson of Culture Guard, another leading opponent, calls the curriculum nothing short of child abuse.
And the British police have the same problem. Are you still there, Morris?
It has been a long road, but Harry Miller, a former police officer, is celebrating what he's called a massive victory for free speech.
People are offended, whether it's Brexit, Tories, elections, in and out, whatever. People are offended all the time. Simple offence cannot be a measure for triggering police involvement.
Mr. Miller found himself at the centre of a hate crime investigation after he was challenged over 31 gender-critical tweets between November 2018 and January the following year. In one message he wrote, "I was assigned mammal at birth, but my orientation is fish. Don't misspecies me." In another he asked, "You know the worst thing about cancer? It's transphobic." He also liked a limerick posted by another account that included the phrase, "Your vagina goes nowhere." Mr. Miller's tweets and other interactions were reported to the police by a transgender woman referred to as Mrs. B. It was then that officers contacted him about his comments and warned he could face prosecution.
The judge has said that, one, none of my tweets were even in the foothills of harassment, and two, that homicide police acted like the Stasi, the Gestapo, and the Checker. Now, that is quite a statement.
And we all saw the following the other day.
So a perfectly peaceful war veteran is being handcuffed for a Facebook post by a politically motivated police force. He's being handcuffed. He's not resisted. He's not done anything. This is a man who served our country, and you people are a disgrace serving an ideology that you're doing.
So now the entire camel is in the tent, apart from the tail, that is. Now I believe the following could possibly be coming next.
But I fear that the clip I'm about to show you might be the start of an insidious creep towards the normalizing of sexual contact with children. Have a listen.
Folks, my name is Miranda. I use she, her pronouns.
I use she, her pronouns. Sound familiar?
And I'm a licensed professional counselor and sex therapist in Erie, Pennsylvania. And today I want to talk about minor attracted persons. And I want to talk about minor attracted persons because they are probably the most vilified population of folks in our culture.
Ah, the most vilified population of folks in our culture. Victims. Sound familiar?
There's a reason for that. Now, when this lady talks about minor attracted persons, what she means is paedophiles. The Latin derivation of that word, of course, is phil, to love, and ped, child. But, of course, as we know, there is no love involved in the damaging behaviours which we quite rightly deem criminal. She goes on.
Most folks are making incorrect assumptions about them without actually knowing much about them. And those assumptions create harm for an already marginalized population.
You see, it's one thing to argue that abusers require help. They do. You will never hear me advocating castration or public floggings. Remember, abusers are commonly former victims themselves. But there is a difference between arguing for understanding and a system which manages or contains these people and blaming others for judging them or trying to make us feel guilty for rejecting in the harshest terms such horrific acts.
We are all people first with many different facets or parts of ourselves, and this includes folks who are attracted to minors.
Do you see? Do you see where this is going? You may think a minor attracted person is wrong because they are not the same as you, but everyone has rights. There's no such thing as good or bad anymore, just a murky moral relativity in which you don't have a right to judge someone who is different to you. Funnily enough, I think we need a very clear, firm line in the sand when it comes to the sexual interference of children. Successful civilizations are built upon the protection of the next generation. A society which does not pride itself on keeping kids happy and safe is one which is heading for annihilation. Sexual assault, unwanted, coercive, or forceful contact of any form is the most effective way of psychologically damaging a young person in both the long and the short term. Some survivors will cope better than others, but a full recovery from such violations is rare.
Let's talk about what a minor attracted person is, or who they are. This term simply means that the person has an enduring sexual or romantic attraction to minors. They've not chosen this attraction.
They've not chosen this attraction. Now, where have I heard language like that before?
Being gay is something that always has been and always will be something that you don't get to choose.
Parenting is a big responsibility, and parenting a trans child, I think, even more so. And I recognize that it can be difficult and confusing as a parent to navigate this very uncharted, unfamiliar territory. What it's important to bear in mind, however, is that being trans is not a choice.
Being trans is not a choice.
just as the rest of us have not chosen whatever our attraction is. You don't get to choose to be heterosexual or to be gay or whatever you are.
Now, Rebel News has also covered the story, and I've posted a link to it below. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see the entire video. In the video, Galbraith, who works with sex offenders at the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, refers to pedophiles as probably the most vilified population of folks in our culture. Department of Corrections. Now, why do I get the sneaky feeling that she is somehow linked to NAMBLA? NAMBLA is the only organisation that specifically supports incarcerated individuals who identify as boy lovers or who otherwise agree with our aims. So what is NAMBLA? NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association. And folks, I've posted a link to this as well. Now, folks, to be fair, I would imagine most gays don't support pedophilia any more than we do. But the fact remains, there is an element in the gay community that does. And sadly, the same applies in the heterosexual community as well.